It's Fully Threaded Radio, episode 221.
That's a huge factor in what we see in our U.S. economy is what's the narrative? Where we're hearing all these negative things that are going on out there. But what's really going on, you look at the indicators, still some very positive things that are going on.
Been seeing a real big push with domestic manufacturing on these items from, the big three, specifically GM itself. It seems like they're really putting a big push on getting these back into the U.S. on items that have, primarily being manufactured overseas in China or Taiwan.
Well, I boarded an airplane and sat next to this guy wearing a Kerr Lakeside hat, and it was you.
It's time for Fully Threaded Radio.
It is Fully Threaded Radio, voice of the FCH Sourcing Network. If you buy, sell, manufacture, import threaded fasteners, or if you just really dig the things, well, it's the podcast for you. Coming to you from semi-rural Northeast Ohio, Eric Dudas with you, and the co-host of Fully Threaded Radio is with us as well. He's fastener code slinger extraordinaire, Brian Musker. Hey, Bri.
How you doing? I come from extremely non-rural Chicago suburbs.
It's bordering on urban where you are.
Not really. Oh, yeah, it is urban. Yeah, sorry. You're right. I was mistaking my rural and urban, okay?
See, I don't do that. We have roosters. You have parakeets.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know. This is for video stuff. I should have shown you what the parrot did to one of our electrical cables. How it didn't get electrocuted, I have no idea. It chewed all the insulation off two of the wires.
Harpo does get into his share of mischief, doesn't he?
Yes, very much so.
Well, come on out here to the country, Bri, where it's nice and safe. All we have to do is watch out for the occasional beaver, maybe a rabid possum here and there, but otherwise it's just great.
Right, that would be much safer than here. We have raccoons and opossums and parrots.
Well, it's an urban jungle. But it's very safe here on episode 221 of Fully Threaded Radio. And it's a content-heavy episode, so we're going to dive right in. Our title segment today is a conversation with IFI Executive Director Dan Walker and Preston Boyd, who runs the industrial segment of the IFI. That's the Industrial Fastener Institute. You might recall from the previous episode, IFI had their fall conference recently. So much went on, but the takeaway for me was speaking with Dan and Preston about the exciting new apprenticeship program that they're launching. We're going to fill you in on all the details of that, plus a few other things about the IFI that you might not have known. Very appropriate these days, Brian, as more and more people are looking at domestic opportunities. That's what the IFI is all about, domestically manufactured fasteners.
Yeah, well, we're right in that game.
On that subject, Tony Martinez with Buckeye Fasteners joins us today also to warm up Mike McNulty. He's going to mention an interesting trend that he's seeing from the big three automakers. And when we get to the Fastener News Report, McNulty's joined by Star Stainless President Tim Roberto Jr. They're going to look at the Fastener Distributor Index, which is still on a roll, Bri. And this month, the forward-looking indicator shot up. And I don't know where it's coming from, but we're going to keep on taking it. What do you say?
Oh, yeah. In fact, I was talking to another of our members this morning about that very thing. And he wasn't quite in agreement with the results. And I said, and he fills the survey, and I said, well, you need to say something that has a special place for comments. Fire away. Tell them what you think and why you think it's different.
The Fastener Distributor Index is a good place to share your ideas with the industry, so that was good advice, Bri. We'll talk about that a little bit later. That's the Fastener News Report with Mike McNulty. His headline today actually ties into our opening segment, which is that Dan Hill has returned to the fastener industry after a couple of year hiatus. He has been named the new CEO of Michigan-based Allstate Fastener. Mike and I didn't coordinate this, but he used it as the top story. So after this episode's over, you'll know all about what's going on up at AFS.
Cool.
Carmen Vertullo has the Fastener Training Minute for us. This time, hydrogen embrittlement aficionados will be very happy.
Good.
This time, it'll be hydrogen embrittlement testing.
Okay. As usual, we'll learn tons.
Plus, Marco Rodriguez with Cresa drops in another of his industrial real estate updates. So it's a packed episode, plenty to jam in, and plenty of partners making it all possible. The title sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio are Brighton Best International, tested, tried, true, Brighton Best. Goebel Fasteners, quality the first time, go Goebel. And Star Stainless, right off the shelf, it's Star. Fully Threaded Radio is also sponsored by Buckeye Fasteners and the Ohio Nut and Bolt Company, BTM Manufacturing, Eurolink, Fastener Supply Service, Indries International, Cresa, Fastener Technology International, InSequel Software, J. Lanfranco, MW Components, Solution Industries, Volt Industrial Plastics, and Worth Industry USA. Let us know if you've got ideas, comments, or questions on the podcast or otherwise. The email address, ftr@fullythreaded.com. Brian and I are also easy to catch on LinkedIn.
Eric's a little easier to catch than Brian is.
Most days true, Bri. And after last episode, I've got a correction to make, and I was wrong, I guess. Lynn does have a LinkedIn account, and I never saw her out there, but after I made the comment on episode 220, she proved me wrong, came in and added a comment to one of my threads, although she doesn't have a photo out there, Bri, but she does have a seldom used LinkedIn account, so sorry, Lynn, I stand corrected.
Really?
But you didn't even know that, did you?
Not really. No.
Yeah, well, you don't care whatsoever, but probably for the best. Keep your mind on what's important, and that is slinging code for FCH and cleaning up fastener data for the fastener industry.
Right. At the moment, lots of it, yeah.
I think everyone can respect that. Somebody's got to keep the wheels on this whole machine. And speaking of that, before we get to a quick break and unfurl today's very content-rich episode, I want to point out that we've been doing several upgrades to the Fully Threaded webpage, which many of you know. And I just realized that there's been a problem with one of the interior pages on the mobile device side. So when you drill into the blog pages, which are really cool, we're putting our show notes and things on these, the style sheet's all messed up. So it doesn't look quite right. And we're going to get that fixed probably by the time you hear this. It'll be fixed. But I did want to make a note of it in case any of you got out there and just, gave up in aggravation, which, let's face it, I don't have a very high tolerance for websites that don't work on the phone anymore. Once upon a time, there was no big deal, but nowadays it's,
Right. Yeah. You could say you have very little tolerance for websites that do not work on the phone.
On that subject now, Bryce, I learned something with this new stats counter that we've got running on the podcast also. More and more people are actually listening to podcasts on watches these days. Did you know that?
Not at all, actually.
Yeah, it's actually the fastest growing trend in podcasting, much to my surprise.
So how does a page show up on a watch then? How does a podcast show up on a watch?
I'm not sure people are actually using it to view. I think they're just listening on their watches. That's my guess. Frankly, I don't know what people are doing anymore, but when I saw that stat, it really surprised me. But it doesn't surprise me that more people are listening to podcasts or that they're using mobile devices. So I guess it stands to reason. People want to take it with them.
Huh. Okay.
Did you ever think that you would be considered Stone Age if you just use your iPhone podcast app? Just a few years ago, that seemed like such a hip thing to do.
Yeah. As opposed to sitting in front of your desk listening to it on this big screen.
Oh, that's so Windows 95, man.
I remember Windows 95, okay? I hated it, but still.
All right, and we're running the risk now of getting back into one of our retro moments, which we don't need to do. Well, let's continue driving ahead, and we'll do that with a very quick break, and we'll be back in a minute to put a wrench to this one. Thanks for listening, everyone. It's Fully Threaded.
Radio.
Talk radio for the fastener industry. It's not really all that bad for the most part. Brian and Eric, Fully Threaded Radio.
Stainless Dan here, coming to you from Star Stainless. From the beginning, Star has offered two major things to our customers. First, we stock a large diversified inventory of sizes, with inventory on hand so you can receive it right off the shelf. Second, we offer personal, friendly, efficient service from placing your order all the way to delivery. Star quality is more than products. It's simple. We're Star.
In continued efforts to improve the industry standard, Goebel Fasteners has developed a patented new multi-grip lock bolt system made completely from T304 stainless steel. In applications where an extensive grip range is needed and a consistent flush pin break to the collar is favorable, the Goebel T304 stainless steel lock bolt system is the new and improved standard in the market. Essentially, the T304 stainless steel lock bolt system's extensive grip range and various sizes can replace up to 14 sizes of the classic 6-groove locking fastener system. Goebel Fasteners, the leading rivet source.
Need USA-made plastic fasteners built for performance? Brighton Best International has you covered. Now you can add premium nylon 6x6 fasteners made in the USA by Volt Plastics to your next BBI order. Designed for construction, automotive, electrical, and medical industries, our nylon fasteners provide superior corrosion resistance, moisture protection, and non-conductive properties. Looking for strength without compromise? Reduce weight, boost durability, enhance chemical resistance. Find trusted nylon hex nuts, wing nuts, spacers, and flat washers at brightonbest.com. Test it, tried, and true. We are Brighton Best.
Hello, this is Rich Pease with RK Precision Products, Green Bay, Wisconsin, still saving the world one screw at a time. And you're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Hey, Bri, we're not going to talk very much about AI on this episode. I think there's a little fastener industry AI fatigue setting in.
Right. Understandable.
I know there are all kinds of projects going on in the background, and it'll be interesting to see who rips that open the widest, the fastest, but that remains to be seen. Anyway, we're not going to dwell on AI today very much. However, I did want to point out that something occurred to me the other day when I was scanning around. Look at the OpenAI logo, Bri. What do you see? It's not a Rorschach type question.
It's not. Yeah.
There's a fastener tie-in that's been right under our noses.
Really? I didn't know that.
All right, I'll just cut to it. Real closely, it's a hex head cap screw nestled inside the OpenAI logo. I've seen it 100 times. It just stood out to me the other day.
I guess I mustn't have seen it 100 times, but it hasn't stood out to me at all. Okay.
All right. No big deal. Just stuff you jam in the folder for show note ideas. Here's another one. We've been talking about the NFBBQA on a few episodes. That's the National Fastener Barbecue Association, folks. A lot of barbecue lovers in the industry. And Brisket Fest 26 will be here sooner than we know. Now, last couple of years, Bri, we tied this into the NCFA Social Week.
Yeah.
And we're going to try and do that again and dovetail it. So we're going to be either the 3rd or 4th week of May 2026 for Brisket Fest 3. A lot of interest this year. Seems like energy's building behind it. And I think the NCFA board will be making their decision on when their date is. For us, it makes a lot of sense to help each other out on that one. So stand by, everyone. Been getting a few questions on the exact date. Looking forward to seeing a lot of people. I know Carmen's in, TJ's in.
Rob.
Big Country will be here with the whole setup. So we've got plenty of pitmasters lined up, and I think that's going to expand even for this year too. So there's your update on Brisket Fest 26 to those who have been wondering.
Okay.
Tony Martinez with Buckeye, I announced he's going to be joining us to kick off the news today, and he is going to cook on site this year.
Really? Cool.
Yeah. And one of the things we're going to talk about in this segment coming up is our discovery of a really good pit not too far from the Cleveland airport. But he was also mentioning to me the fact that the big three automakers are encouraging their suppliers to look for domestic sources. And in keeping with that, just today in the headlines, this comes from businesstimes.com. Headline, GM wants parts makers to pull supply chain from China. Story starts out, General Motors has directed several thousand of its suppliers to scrub their supply chains of parts from China, reflecting automakers' growing frustration over geopolitical disruptions to their operations. GM executives have been telling suppliers they should find alternatives to China for their raw materials and parts, with the goal of eventually moving their supply chains out of the country entirely.
That's going to create interesting backlash from China.
Well, it is pretty big news, and I think it means a lot of things. Again, Tony has some direct experience with this, but we're going to be digging into this a lot more in upcoming episodes, I think. Just seemed like a natural thing to throw this in since it whizzed by in the headlines today.
Very interesting.
And another guy who will know a lot about this is the new CEO of Allstate Fastener, because they're heavy in the automaker supply chain. Let's get to that segment now.
Cool.
It's often said in the fastener industry that once you're in, you're not getting out. Well, Dan Hill, you have been in the fastener industry, and then you haven't been, and what can I say? Welcome back.
Great to be back, Eric. Thank you very much for having me on today's show. Much appreciated. No, you're right. It's a little bit like Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. That's why I'm back.
And I was not really surprised. I guess I was a little surprised when I saw the headline fly by on LinkedIn, because I didn't know specifically, but I had a feeling that this would happen, something like it. And so let's refresh everybody's memory. You took a 2.5-year stint. You've been selling pizza. Is that what it is? Bring us up to speed here, Dan. You're now with Allstate Fastener. Let's say that right up front. And you are the newly appointed CEO. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. I'm thrilled to be coming back to an industry I truly love, especially to Allstate, a company that's ready to compete and win on a global scale. So with the entrepreneurial family foundation that it has, just a great opportunity to come back and have some fun in the business. And prior to that, the last 2.5 years have spent my time up in New York, working for a company called Ferraro Foods. Ferraro Foods is one of the largest distributors of Italian fine foods in the United States, over $1 billion. So yes, going from electrical industry to electronics to fasteners to food and back to fasteners, it's been a great career in distribution, and I'm excited to be back in this industry.
Well, food's a big part of what you do still, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I just wanted to say that I appreciated that during your brief hiatus from fasteners, you always paid attention to the Fastener Distributor Index. We had a little banter going back and forth from time to time, and so you kept your finger on the pulse, and I was always glad to see that.
You have to keep a pulse, and I've been on the board of Allstate now for a little over a year, and that also allowed me to stay connected inside the industry. And yes, it's funny, each industry has their own index. In the Ferraro food lands and pizza lands, there's it's called the Daily Cheese Reporter, and it follows the cheese market index. And when you're selling, $600 million a year of cheese and mozzarella, you have a tendency to take and be glued into that index, very much the same way we were glued into your index. So it's amazing how, as you move through different industries, there's similarities throughout on this distribution side.
You were very active on LinkedIn, and I saw lots of pictures of you in all kinds of situations, eating delicious food, a lot of pizza, talking about pizza, thinking about pizza. I got to say, as a side note, Dan, congratulations on your ongoing training, because you're looking like you're in pretty good shape still. I don't know how you did it.
Well, it's actually kind of a funny story behind that. I call it my first year at Ferraro. I gained more than 30 pounds the first year when you're eating pizza every day, 7 days a week, or pasta. And that's one of the pieces I really enjoyed about that business is all the family relationships that you had And if there's ever a time that I enjoyed making sales calls, it was at Ferraro. You could be starting in the morning with a slice of pie at 9 a.m. And then you get encouraged to try, Nona's pizza or lasagna or rigatoni. And so, yes, that first year was tough for me, Eric. I didn't know how to handle all the eating. And over the past 18 months, I've dropped 65 pounds. So that's the best fighting weight I've been in more than 15 years. So found a way to be able to have my pizza and eat it too, if you will.
Way to go. Well, we'll talk to you offline about the rugged nuts and recruiting you onto that team. Not sure if you got wind of all that, but you're a prime candidate.
I've been watching the photo shoots on those every year, and you guys look like you have too much fun in the Tough Mudders. I'm not sure I'm ready for that yet, but I'll tell you what, you guys look like you have a blast doing it.
Well, that's true. Well, you'd fit in other ways too, because a lot of folks, regular listeners of the podcast, know that I frequently introduce myself as saying I'm coming to you from semi-rural Northeast Ohio. And you're actually right down the road. At least one of your operations is. Some people know about your maple syrup, Hill Farms.
Yeah, Hill Creek Farm is the name of it.
Right.
Hill Creek Farm, maple syrup. And yes, we bought some property out there in Ashtabula in 2018, and then slowly but surely built it into a full production maple syrup facility, and have a lot of fun doing it. It's important when you travel as much as I do, and as your kids are getting older, like mine are, having an opportunity to come back to some place where you can enjoy some tradition is important. And that's really what Hill Creek Farm has become for us. The Hill family is getting together and continue to celebrate those traditions, and having a lot of fun out at the farm. And maple syrup, as you well know, can be a tricky business. You're in business with Mother Nature, and really a short season this particular year. We had about a 3.5-week season. We tried to produce enough syrup to last us through the entire year. Website sales are way up this year, and it looks like we're going to make it through Christmas, but it'll be close. We'll definitely sell out for sure again before the new harvest in the spring.
Well, knowing your propensity for dialing all these entrepreneurial endeavors in, I have no doubt that you're going to do it. Despite what Mother Nature throws your way, you're going to have it all mapped out. And just so that people who aren't familiar with the production process, that happens when here in Northeast Ohio? Probably like early, mid-February usually?
It does happen in that time frame. This is when the thaw becomes above 35 degrees, 40 degrees warm days, and then it drops below freezing. That pulls the sap up and down the tree trunk, and that's when the opportunity to begin to harvest that maple syrup, and I should say maple sap. It takes about 50 gallons of sap to make a gallon of maple syrup. It's a big ratio, so clearly a lot of boiling necessary to get it down into that what we call liquid gold, so to speak. And again, part of the challenge of the maple syrup business is knowing how long the season is going to last, because once photosynthesis takes part and we get into bud and get leaves, that's the end of the season. The syrup tastes extremely bitter at that point of the season. So just a quick window, and you hope to get 5 or 6 weeks for that up and down temperature range. And again, this year went pretty quick. Went from being really cold to a couple of 2 or 3 weeks of a warming spell, and then it went super hot and trees bud. So that's a bit of the process.
All right, so you're ramping up already for this coming harvest, and well, we'll wish you luck on all that. And I got to say that I would put Northeast Ohio syrup against any on the planet. I've said that before. Looking forward to trying yours, though, still, Dan.
Absolutely, Eric.
I've got a farmer down the road here. I picked some up from him. He does a nice job, too. Okay, but we've got other things to talk about, and those are fasteners. And you're back in the industry. You're with Allstate Fasteners, well known for your footprint in the automotive market. Tell us a little bit about what your job is mapped out in front of you these days, Dan.
Well, you get to a spot in time where I'm at in my career, and I'm very blessed to have the opportunity to select what type of role you want and who do you want to work for. And after spending over a year as a board member of Allstate and with the Giorgio family, they approached me about becoming a CEO, and I'm honored to step into that role, especially with a company with such a rich legacy and a strong foundation built by many generations of the Giorgio family. And now we're down into our third generation here, and a couple of grandkids came along. So we've got some hope for a fourth generation as well. And what again makes this particular opportunity especially meaningful for me is the chance to build alongside generations 2 and 3, and with a long-term view toward generations 4 and 5. I'm excited to work with my talented leadership team here and a group of passionate people who enjoy growing together. And the future at Allstate is extremely bright. The company's been around since 1963, and the family just has a real commitment to investing in the business and growing it. So a unique opportunity for me to get back into the industry much closer to home too. You can jump in the car in a couple hours, can be here, and just again, really excited about working alongside the family and moving the business to the next level.
You're headquartered out of Roseville, Michigan, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So what's the big initiative these days? I mean, what's top on your list?
Number one on my list is, again, I'll go back to the pizzeria business for a minute and bring some of that over into the fastener side. When you're selling to pizzerias, Eric, there are no contracts. So every single day you earn a pizzeria business owner's business, one line order at a time, one line item at a time, one order at a time. There's no long-term contracts. So that focuses you to be a very, very highly invested business person relative to how you meet expectations and customer expectations. And if you don't meet those expectations, they move that order on to someone else. And that really drives a sense of urgency, a huge sense of urgency, and really creates that focus on the customer experience. And that customer is everything to the business. It's not just a slogan, it's 100% about what drives the business. And we really want to bring that customer-focused growth, the customer-focused energy into the Allstate business at an even higher level than it already exists. And so again, from my standpoint, just extremely customer-focused growth. And then scalable technology investments. Like many businesses that have been around 50, 60 years, there's some archaic systems. And we have a great opportunity to invest in some new technology, even going along the AI side as well. And then the third component for us is strategic acquisitions. So anytime you're trying to move a business into the next generation, the intent is to grow fast and grow healthy. And so it's a good combination between organic growth with new customers, organic growth with existing customers, spreading that wallet share, and then the strategic acquisition side is extremely, extremely important. So those are the areas that we're going to be focusing in on here. And as you may have seen, we continue to build out the leadership team here. Fantastic leadership team, really built with a lot of industry veterans that are familiar with this playbook, and we're looking forward to going and growing.
You've got a lot on your plate, as always, and thanks for rattling that off. I mean, it sounds like you're pretty well rehearsed and ready to get into it, so look forward to seeing you work.
Absolutely. And I look forward to getting some more time with you out on West Branch, and still looking for that magical number one muskie. So
we're still chasing that muskie.
I'm still chasing that muskie, chasing it like a piece of pizza on a Friday afternoon.
Well, you got a lot going on. Okay, so you got the syrup, you got the fastener gig, and we still got to get a muskie. And we haven't even started talking about barbecue yet, Dan, so there's a lot in store for us. You beat me to the punch. I was going to ask you what you're bringing from the pizza business into the fastener industry or back into it, and you got it. You've always been sort of a people CEO. Sounds like you're continuing there. AllstateFastener.com. That's where folks can get more info. And I'll look forward to talking to you again, Dan Hill, in the near future.
Thanks, Eric.
From thousands of in-stock fasteners, including NAS and MS hardware, to custom parts built to your specifications, MW Components delivers. With U.S. manufacturing across 8 locations, we offer cold heading, precision machining, fully custom solutions, and engineering support for challenging applications. From rapid prototyping to full production, we deliver the capabilities and skill for your most demanding needs. Learn more at mwcomponents.com/fasteners.
This is Marco Rodriguez from Cresa with your industrial real estate update. Is one big warehouse better than 3 small ones? Owners and managers of fastener distributors run their businesses by the numbers. For companies with multiple locations that have been around a long time or that have grown through acquisition, there's likely a CFO somewhere pointing to a spreadsheet showing 3 separate lease payments, 3 utility bills, and 3 piles of the exact same quarter 20 hex bolt. So the pressure's on to consolidate, and that CFO may ask, why are we paying for all this redundancy? It's a great question, and the answer isn't always just about cost. There's a clash of strategy, efficiency versus service. In the case for consolidation, the efficiency argument, you have the obvious cost savings. You cut redundant overhead, rent, labor, management, and utilities. That's pretty simple. But the biggest benefit is inventory optimization. Instead of holding 50,000 of a specific washer at 3 different locations, or 150,000 total, you can now hold 80,000 of that washer in one central hub. This is a massive reduction in working capital, which can be reinvested to other parts of the business. Maybe there's an opportunity to implement warehouse automation. It can be hard to justify a $5 million automated picking system for a 20,000 square foot warehouse. But for a single 100,000 square foot distribution center, it can become a huge labor-saving efficiency gain. Every yin has its yang. So there's also the powerful case for multiple warehouse networks, the service argument. The biggest factor here is your last mile. Most end customers, whether they're manufacturers or on construction sites, operate in just-in-time. A line down can't just wait 2 days for a freight shipment from a central DC. Beyond just storage, these local warehouses become service centers. They are the base for your local delivery and, more importantly, your high-margin VMI programs. There's also shipping costs and speed to consider. If a competitor can promise next-day ground and you're 3 days away, you'll likely lose that order. So multiple locations keep you competitive on freight. But finally, there's the risk. What happens when a snowstorm, flood, or labor strike shuts down your one central hub? Your entire company comes offline. So what's the right answer? As always, it depends. It depends on your customer and the promise you've made to them. So you need to ask yourself 3 questions. First, what do we really sell? Are you a low-cost, high-volume national wholesaler or importer? Consolidation supports that model. Or second, are you a high-touch solution on the shop floor or VMI partner? If so, a local network is your product. But can you have both? Many distributors are moving to a hub-and-spoke model, a central DC for bulk and slow-moving items, which feed smaller local service centers that stock the A items and VMI parts. The takeaway is don't just look at lease payments. Look at your customers. Cutting a warehouse to save 5% on overhead might wind up costing you 20% of your business. Nobody wants that. At Cresa, we build these analyses for our clients all the time. If you want to talk nuts and bolts or roofs and walls, I'm Marco Rodriguez from Cresa, and I can be found on LinkedIn. Hope to hear from you.
Hi, this is Alan Weitzman with JC Sales and Rivet. Visit us for all your rivet needs on www.rivetsonline.com. You are listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Well, if you're a fan of hydrogen embrittlement or fastener news, this is your favorite segment of the podcast. Welcome back, everybody. Fully Threaded, and it's the news segment. Carmen Vertullo will be hopping on after that with his Fastener Training Minute, and he's going to be rolling out some hydrogen embrittlement testing. That's why I presented it that way. But now, I don't know whether we're going to talk about barbecue or fasteners first. Tony Martinez, Buckeye Fasteners, with me. Hey, brother.
Hey, Eric. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, but I'm a little torn here because we do tend to go down that rabbit hole of barbecue, and sometimes we don't emerge quickly.
No, not at all, especially after our last encounter, finding the world-famous hole in the wall that was absolutely delicious.
I think we found one of the top 3 barbecue establishments in the Cleveland area that I know of.
It's funny, it's literally 10 minutes from my house, never even heard of it. And it was just fantastic. The pricing was great. The portion, we were just stuffed.
It's true. All right. So we've kind of started already. Let's just rewind though for a second and throw some fastener intel down for everybody so that we can whet their appetite that way, as if we haven't already. We were cruising around the other day looking for this place, and you were mentioning to me something that I think will catch a lot of listeners' ear. Had to do with the hex flange nut category. What were you telling me?
Yeah, Buckeye being a niche role in the fastener world with weld fasteners and some other types, I've been seeing a real big push with domestic manufacturing on these items from the big three, specifically GM itself. It seems like they're really putting a big push on getting these back into the U.S. on items that have, primarily being manufactured overseas in China or Taiwan.
So in other words, you're seeing an uptick in inquiries and you're tying that back to there's a bigger demand for domestically manufactured product. Is that correct?
That is correct. And this was further solidified in the conversation I actually had at the end of last week, that it seems that GM is like 100% in this initiative. They're really trying to stabilize supply chain after the last, 3-4 years that we've seen, disruptions via pandemic. There was some conversation with some geopolitical issues. And I think they're really just trying to strengthen up their supply chain and have a little more control.
So how long have you been feeling this?
Well, I've been seeing this probably, I would say, for the last couple months. I didn't know if it was just a feasibility study. What are they really looking for? Obviously there is some concern. Is this just for the next 3 years? But, after having the conversation I had at the end of last week, it really seems like they are making a concerted effort to make this happen. So it seems like it's going to be a long-term thing and not just due to the current economic uncertainties.
Any other categories affected by this?
I'm assuming it's going to be all different types of fasteners that are going tier 1 to automotive producing. So you might even see it via tier 2, tier 3 if you're not going tier 1 directly. I'm only seeing my niche role weld fasteners currently, but I could see it expanding where something that's not being domestically produced at this current moment, but they're probably beginning a push for it soon, would be my guess.
Okay, interesting. So how is Buckeye Fasteners and the Ohio Nut and Bolt Company responding to this? You guys have been expanding your production capability for a while now. It's always a work in progress over there, but how about in this case?
In this case, yeah, we are looking at our current capabilities and the ability to see what we can do on producing this. We did recently get a new parts former earlier in the year, and it's up and running. This machine does have the capabilities to produce this item, but we're really looking in what one we would like to dial into, because there's a vast range anywhere from M6 to M14. But, we're really trying to figure out which one we should go after. So we're looking into, tooling, how quick can we get it? What's our, capacity to make this happen? But we are definitely taking a concerted effort as well to see if this is something we want to jump on, saying, come first to market.
What else do you think about when you're evaluating which side of this to jump in on?
Like I said, when I was first skeptical when it came through, I thought it was going to be just a feasibility study and see if we can actually get it domestically. But I really think this would be beneficial to everyone, especially those automotive brands that are looking to make that change and have a stronger supply chain. We're looking into some of the items that we do already stock, that are produced in Taiwan. And I think we're going to really focus on our high movers that we're using on that are imported directly from overseas.
All right. I guess you're going to keep us advised on this, Tony.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking to see what we can get moving. Like I said, just had to set up a meeting here later in the week to really push it home and provide some numbers and see what we can do. But, I'm looking forward to it. And it's always a good thing to see things coming back onshore and, definitely helps out in the domestic manufacturing process.
Whenever we talk about reshoring, bringing manufacturing back and all that, the conversation about labor and, the staff to man all this equipment always comes into it. What's it looking like from your perspective in the Cleveland market? Are there a lot of machinists that you see are available to jump into these roles? Should you go in one direction or another, or is it pretty tight here like we hear in a lot of other places?
It's definitely pretty tight. I've noticed just seeing what's out there, just to see who's looking for an operator or what's going on in the market. And it seems like a lot of people are trying to find a younger operator force, where a lot of people I keep talking to are having capacity issues for labor, where, the age force is just kind of aging out, and trying to get the younger generation to run a machine is just like pulling teeth.
My sense is that a lot of outfits are just struggling to stay even, much less expand.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement.
Okay, well, that's a work in progress for the industry. We've talked a lot about it on Fully Threaded and across the industry. So, okay, well, thanks for your perspectives on that. We're going to be hearing a lot more on, I think, the general tone of business right now, be it because of the tariffs or just general reshoring, what have you, when Mike McNulty jumps on with Tim Roberto this time of Star Stainless. They'll be looking at the FDI, talking about a lot of these issues generally, but Tony Martinez with Buckeye Fasteners here speaking specifically right now about an individual case that came up during
the world famous barbecue hunt.
Yes, quest for the perfect barbecue, which I don't know if we found it, but we found something pretty good. We'll talk about that in a minute, right after I mention that the Fastener News Report is brought to us, as usual, by Volt Industrial Plastics, makers of the world's finest plastic fasteners. The title sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio, Brighton Best, Global Fasteners, and Star Stainless. Of course, Buckeye's been with us almost since the beginning too, Tony, and we sure do appreciate that. You guys have been huge supporters of us, and it's always good to have friends out there on the show floors and someone to go check out new barbecues with, as we did recently. So, I think we hit a ringer on this one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to going back. I told my wife that's our new dinner night when we ship the kids to Grandma and Grandpa's house, so I have no problem with it. It was that delicious.
Well, that's an endorsement, and if you got a woman who went for that, you did well, Tony. So we haven't mentioned the name yet, which I will in a second. And before I do, I think that what we've been talking about with the NFBBQA concept, it's something that really we've talked about a little bit, but haven't fully fleshed it out. And one thing that we can do, a service we can provide the fastener industry, would be to identify a couple of must-hit places in each of the big fastener cities where our people hang out, That way we could have a directory. When you're traveling, you always know where to go and probably who you can stop in at these places with, And so I think we are well underway of getting Cleveland locked in.
I would agree with that statement. I can't express it enough, Eric, how delicious that was.
All right, you want to divulge the name?
I mean, we can. You know what? We got to let everybody know. That's how good it is. And when they're in the area, they should go. You would never in the whole world, by the size of this place on the side of the road, think it is that great. But I tell you what, it was that great. What was that name?
It was Bronco.
Bronco, that's right. It is Bronco.
Right on Ridge Road, not terribly far from the airport, and Buckeye Fasteners and the Ohio Nut and Bolt Company. So we did do the sample platters where I think we got a pretty good idea about what these guys put out in terms of their brisket and their ribs. Mm-hmm. And the fries were really good. The slaw was good. The sides were all excellent. And the ambiance was there. The price was right. I don't know. You don't stumble into these kinds of places very often, Tony.
No. And the fact that you said, when we looked at it, it was open till 6 or till they sell out. They're doing something right.
Yeah, always the mark of a good place, because you know that you're not getting yesterday's barbecue.
Exactly. The smell was great. You could smell the wood just smoking as soon as you pull into the parking lot. The cornbread, you forgot about the cornbread. Everything came with cornbread, and that was pretty delicious too.
However, there was one failure on our part. Actually, it was my part, and that was we forgot completely. We were so happy, when we were done, that we forgot to go back and get the banana pudding.
I was like, just hit me. You wanted the banana pudding. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So kind of a failure, but the bright side is it's right there by Buckeye. I'll be back in the near future. We'll hit it again.
I was going to say, we have to go back now.
I'd be surprised if we don't hear from a few people who want to join us for the next one after they hear this. All right. Well, Tony, it was a pleasure. I'm so glad that I had the chance to get out there and hang with you and discover this place together. You know, the quest will continue, however.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it will.
We'll do it. And the quest for Fastener News never ends. Mike McNulty knows that very well. Tony, I'd like to thank you for jumping on with me and for giving us a little glimpse into what's going on right now in a very important segment of your business. Buckeye Fasteners, appreciate you being here. But now it's time for you to do a quest for something else.
That it is. And now, the news about screws that you can use. Here is Mike McNulty.
Thanks, Tony. This is Mike McNulty from Fastener Technology International Magazine, bringing you the Fastener News Report, which is sponsored by Volt Industrial Plastics, makers of the world's finest plastic fasteners. The U.S. federal government set a new shutdown record. Thousands and possibly millions of Canadian baseball fans are scarred for life. America solidified its intractable sports gambling problem, and New York City voters just flew a bit too close to the sun. But I am still focused on fasteners and ready to deliver today's Fastener News Report. In this episode, Star Stainless Group President Tim Roberto Jr. joins us to reveal the latest results of the Fastener Distributor Index, also known as the FDI. Also in today's broadcast, we have our top story from Allstate Fastener, plus newsmaker headlines from AFC, Easy Lock, KBC Tools, Rotor Clip, the Fastener Industry Coalition, TriMast, Linfast Solutions Group, MW Components, Fastenal, and more. On the back page report, we're going to talk about states in the USA. We'll get to all of that and the latest FDI results right after this.
Hey there, Fastener distributors. This is Heidi Voltrauer from Volt Industrial Plastics. As a fellow Fastener industry business, Volt knows you are always on the lookout for ways to help your customer while keeping costs in check. So, why not plastic? Listen, there's no argument that metal fasteners have to be used for certain applications. But when strength isn't the primary concern, why not explore the saving benefits of plastic? You not only save your company money, but also pass those savings on to your valued customers. Our team at Volt makes sourcing easy, and we look forward to helping you find exactly what you need when you need it. So, for all of your plastic fastener needs, you know the website, voltplastics.com.
Precision, efficiency, durability. J.L. Franco has been a trusted name for the finest lock nuts worldwide and across North America for over 40 years, providing self-locking lock nuts and critical bolting components for applications in aerospace, energy, military, rail, mining, industrial, and many other sectors where reliability and high performance are essential. JLandFranco.com. J.L. Franco, lock nuts for critical bolted joints.
This is Craig Penland from Eurolink. As we celebrate our 25th anniversary, I want to reflect on how we got here, and more importantly, why we're still here. It's not just about fasteners or supply chains. It's about our mission. For 25 years, we've worked as your partner in solving problems. We've done it with integrity, grit, and by supporting one another. Fulfilling your supply chain needs quickly and efficiently is our top priority. We exist to serve, solve, and support, and we couldn't do it without you. Here's to 25 years of service and many more to come. Eurolink, hard to find metric fasteners delivered.
Back to the Fastener News Report with Mike McNulty.
The seasonally adjusted Fastener Distributor Index for October 2025 dipped slightly to 55.3 after surging last month to 55.8. Seasonally adjusted. This was the 8th reading above 50 out of the last 9 and the second best result of 2025. The forward-looking indicator, also known as the FLI, rose this month to 51.7 after dropping to 48.9 in September. Fastener Distributor Index data is collected and analyzed by the FCH Sourcing Network and Baird. The FDI seeks to identify demand, pricing, and outlook trends within the American fastener distribution industry. To get some insight on these results, we're going to talk to Star Stainless Group President Tim Roberto Jr. Hi, Tim. Thanks for joining us on the Fastener News Report.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mike. I'm excited to come back.
Good to have you back on. What do you think about the latest FDI results?
I was actually pleased. As much as there was a small dip into October, it still seems like it's reasonably high. And I think we're seeing some of that relatively to some of the markets that we're seeing as well. So I think it is pretty indicative of some of what we've been seeing recently. So I think it was definitely a positive trend.
Yeah, saying, the 55, above 55 is a pretty solid number, and that's 2 months in a row. So you mentioned some sectors are doing well. Do you want to share any of those with the listeners?
Well, I think it's what you'll see similar to what we saw in the PMI. I know you see a differential in the PMI this month of October when we saw the ISM compared to the S&P. But I think the S&P kind of focuses more on the domestic focused manufacturers, and I think that's some of the areas where we've been seeing some positive growth of those who are maintaining and manufacturing for within our own market. I think the world market's still a little soft overall. You're starting to see some positive signs of them coming out of it, but I think it's still overall soft and slow. But I think the U.S. market, which has been driving a lot of the economic growth over 2025, I think the S&P's tapped into it. And I think that's sort of what we're also seeing with this FDI is a lot of manufacturers that are tied to the domestic focus are doing relatively very well. Right. Now, the last time you were on was, I looked, it was December 2024, and the FDI was at 46. So lots changed in just under a year. Were you blaming me for that 46?
No, I'm just saying you got some good numbers to talk about this time.
I know. This is definitely good. And it's been positive. We've been seeing the trends, and it's definitely good to see.
Okay, so on the numbers front, sales were down, but still pretty strong at a little bit above 60. And employment, deliveries, and inventories all increased slightly. Does that tell you anything, that combination?
Yeah, I think you're just still seeing it. To the point that I just made a little bit ago, you're still seeing a segment of the markets that are slow. And so I think that always gets people a little worried. But we're still seeing other segments that are so strong that are carrying the rest of the weight, and it's needed. Sales are strong. Employment's needed to be able to hold up with deliveries. I mean, we've been seeing that. So I think that is indicative of what we're seeing, but I think there's still that sense of uneasiness, uncertainty, just because you're still seeing other markets that are lagging behind.
Then on the pricing front, we saw month-to-month jumped up a little bit to 75 versus 72 last month, and year-to-year dropped below 90 for the first time since April. Does that mean anything?
Yeah, I mean, the metals have... I think it's hard to read directly into that because the metals have stayed pretty consistent. You'll see a little bit of movement here or there, but I mean, with as soft as the world market's been, for the metals to stay where they've stayed has been actually, I think, a very positive sign. And so I don't think there's a whole lot to read just in that little blip because I think you're just seeing almost the seasonally adjusted pricing that starts to slow down towards the fourth quarter anyways.
Yeah, because it's been way up there ever since the tariffs too.
Correct.
Okay, you mentioned a little bit earlier the PMI. It dropped a little bit to 48.7 versus 49.1 last month, and it's the 8th month in a row below 50. So they just can't get their head above water there.
But that's what I was also like. I was always interested to compare that ISM to the S&P. The S&P has been strong. For October, it was over 54, and so I think what we've been seeing, similar to what we've seen. I think we've actually been going more the route of the S&P than we have the ISM. And it's always wonder, like, what's the difference? Well, the ISM's a little bit smaller and more focused on larger manufacturers, where S&P's a little bit larger, 800 in ISM as opposed to 1,200 in S&P. But also you have the smaller and mid-level manufacturers that will be represented in the S&P that might not be represented in the ISM. And so I've been following both, and it's interesting to always see kind of the differences, because I think when you look at the large manufacturers, they're struggling with the worldwide demand. Exports are down, and we're seeing a lot of aspects because of the exports that are down because of tariffs and increase of price.
All right. So in other words, nothing really to worry about.
I'm not necessarily overly concerned. Like if I didn't see there was a differential, if we saw that both were lagging behind, definitely worry. I mean, there's always a segment to work because, like I said, that is a segment of what we deal with. And so distributors that are listening to this, they're feeling the effects of that because we have manufacturers that are definitely down. But to that point, I think it really is this crazy market segmentation that we're seeing is you get some markets that are strong. And that's kind of where I think it just depends on how well people are versed and how varied they are in the markets
where they're supplying.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
All right. So the other set of numbers we have is the 6-month outlook, and that staged a pretty decent recovery. It jumped to 44% expecting things to be better 6 months from now, 34% expecting them to be the same, and only 22% expecting things to be worse. And this is a good improvement over the bleak result last month, which was 29%, 32%, and 39%. So had a big shift of people moving into the positive outlook for 6 months. I don't know what happened.
I think people are feeling some of the positive results. Like when the FDI goes up, like when it stays up as it has at the 55% range, I think you start to feel a little bit more comfortable just because you've had a couple of stronger months as opposed to uncertainty where like it popped up from, I think we were 51 in August to 55 in September. It's that sense of, was this a one-time thing? Was this a 1 month thing? Or are we starting to see some of a trend? And I think what we've seen over the last couple of months is there is this trend that it is staying strong. And that's, I think for a distributor, that's what you have to worry about. Like the small segment that is doing very well and very strong, are they going to slow down, or is the large portion going to get busier? I think that's that sense of uneasiness. But when we've seen that there's some history of the strength of the market, even if it might be smaller, I think we could be a little bit more certain that we feel a little more comfortable on the overall future outlook.
All right. Now, these numbers were taken while the government was still shut down. It's still shut down while we're recording this, but it looks like it's going to end. Do you think that's going to have any impact going forward?
I think it will. I think it's always nice because it does give you a sense of certainty. It's just crazy the things that we see going on, and yet, but I think at the same time we also see how strong, and I think people forget how strong that U.S. economy is. Despite the craziness and the things we see going on, it keeps chugging away, and I think that's some of kind of the resiliency and the perseverance we see just in the overall economy. So I think, while it does give some consumers a sense of confidence that it's like, okay, maybe we feel a little bit better that there's not this shutdown, I think on the other side, it's like the economy is going to keep rolling just because it has to keep rolling. Yeah, but I think it'd be good to get this latest level of shutdown. We'll see that maybe there'll be another one in January. Who knows? Yeah. It's just like playing with fire. All the time. And the sad part is how we forget that it's actually just playing with people and their livelihood. People aren't getting paid, right? Yeah, between the military, between the people that are air traffic controllers, it's how sad that is. Right. And I know a guy who works in the Social Security Administration, just a regular guy with wife and kids and bills to pay, and he's just going to work, not getting paid. Yeah, that is sad. All right. Well, we're getting off track here. So anything else you want to add to these positive FDI number and FLI number? Yeah, I think it really is kind of indicative of what we see on the macro level, that we see things that have been relatively strong, and we still are trending towards that. The trajectory we've seen has been strong, and our goal is to just keep at it. It really is that sense of, I think, Thornburg, the economist, loves to talk to that idea of the narrative as opposed to what's really going on. And I think that's a huge factor in what we see in our U.S. economy is what's the narrative? What we're hearing, all these negative things that are going on out there. But what's really going on, you look at the indicators, still some very positive things that are going on. Do we have some reasons for concern? We do. And hopefully those will continue to get addressed. But at the same time, we also see some really good things going on in the manufacturing sectors that are especially focused here in the U.S., in a U.S. economy that's still strong relative to the rest of the world. Yeah, and in areas, if you get into data centers or electro industry and things like that, they're just really taking off. Blowing up, yes. Yeah, very exciting. I was at a conference, this is a sidebar, I was at a conference, and they were talking, it was all about data centers, electro industry and things like that. And then they were saying in Europe, it's all about preserving carbon. So yes. And we're all figuring out how to adjust to the new technology, right? So. Yeah, you're not kidding. So, okay, good. Well, we're going to jump into the comments. And as usual, there's a lot of tariffs in here and some other things and a little bit of shutdown, but I'll read the comments and then you can jump in on any of them if you want to add anything or dispute anything. First one is, quote, tariffs are the reason for drastic increases, end quote. Sales revving up, but volume is down. An increase in revenue is based on increased costs and tariffs, end quote. Think there's any truth to that? Or sales are up, but volume is not? I think that's why it's important for companies to continue to track volume, just to see relative to what dollars do, go up, go down. That's always kind of the volatility, especially on stainless side, that we've always seen historically. I think volume's a great indicator of what's going on. We haven't necessarily seen that slowdown in volume. At least it's stayed steady. including some steady increases. But at the same time, there are other areas that you're seeing volume slow down. So I think, again, that's market segmentation. Not sure what market they're addressing themselves, but their first point is true. You'll see it's hard to get excited over revenues that are up because of a tariff as opposed to a volume. And so I get that concern. For us, we always try to continue to make sure that we're following the volume track. And that's really the push for us, is to say, how are we holding up to that so that we're holding market?
Smart. All right. The next one is kind of pretty straightforward. U.S.-made parts will continue to be favored by buyers when possible, end quote. Next one says, it's crazy. Tariff uncertainty remains a big problem. It's all through the supply chain, and the public doesn't realize how insidious it is. Plus, from Thanksgiving on, things slow down naturally until after the first of the year, end quote.
Yeah. To the first point, I think ideally it's great to sit there and say, hey, we're going to buy American, but realistically speaking, there's families that can't afford that. Mm-hmm. Speaking to a market, I know for us, you're talking in fasteners, it could be 6 or 7 times higher the cost of domestic versus import, depending on what you're looking at, depending on the material involved, labor involved in doing it. But that's a huge jump. I mean, and certain families, they just wouldn't be able to afford that. It's a great ideal to have, to say, hey, let's buy U.S. made whenever we can. But the reality is some people just can't afford that. That's a huge spike in inflation for them in their own household. Some people are just trying to get through. So while I'd love to see that a reality, I think also the infrastructure of U.S. manufacturing, we need to address that. I think in the fastener side, we're starting to see it. We're seeing people come on board and we're seeing capacities grow. But I think when it's all overall said and done, I don't think we have that capacity to be able to continue to support the economy as it grows.
It's not just flipping a switch. It takes a little
correct
time.
Yeah.
Hiring,
money.
And training, and
a lot of money.
Fastener Training Institute.
that is true. But it's a capital expenditure that people have to ask, are they going to do that? Because it takes a while to get that money back. And so that return on investment, you have to have the stomach to be able to do it.
Okay, next one. Tariffs are still affecting business levels as companies are delaying orders in hopes of avoiding tariffs. European customers are ordering directly from Europe to avoid tariffs, end quote. Interesting.
Yeah, I think there is definitely some of that in the market. That fear of getting stuck with both overpriced material if the tariffs suddenly go away. I know the recent talk has been with the court case going on.
Yeah, right. We didn't even mention that. Yeah,
knowing that could play a definite part of it. For us in the fastener industry, it'd only play half of it because 232 and 301 tariffs won't be going away. They've already been tested and true through the courts. This will take more away the IEEPA tariff situation, but still.
IEEPA.
Yeah, there you go.
I heard some people calling it IEEPA.
But I think that uncertainty does give people a little bit of fear of I don't want to be stuck with overpriced inventory. And I think that's where the market's going to be able to kind of shift through that to say, okay, how do we do that? Well, you find partners who are willing to take on that risk, mitigate that risk. That's sort of where historically, in our industry, we've seen the master distribution kind of fill that hole of okay, there is some uncertainty. What do we do? We lean on others for this time to lean on their inventory till we get some more sense of certainty of what that's going to look like long term.
Yeah, because there's a good chance that these IEEPA tariffs get overturned because the Constitution gives power to these tariffs to Congress, not to the executive branch. So
correct.
And then if they get overturned, which if I'm looking at the Constitution, they probably should be, but do people get their money back, right?
That's above my pay grade. Good thing I'm not the person that has to deal with those ramifications. I'm just focused on selling nuts and bolts. That's all I want to do.
Right. And people feeling like a sucker because they bought a lot of stuff and paid the tariffs that they didn't have to. Or even miscalculated them. So anyways, let's move on. Next one. Our incoming order rate continued to be strong in October. I'm sure November and December will be down slightly due to holiday schedules, but we're hoping for a strong Q1 and 2026.
Yeah, I hear a lot of customers have been saying similar things along that same route. October was definitely strong, but even some of this beginning of November has stayed relatively strong as well. So it's been interesting to see, knowing that there's some seasonality between the holidays, that there will be some slowdown. But I think that's that slowdown to ramp up for what a Q1 that should be really, really good. It should be positive because we'll be outside of probably some of the constitutional tariff talk. we'll have at least more clarity on that. And then we'll focus just back on building the market and what's going on and back into the manufacturing, sort of like what happened back in the day with the 301 tariffs, where it did take a while and there was a lag just in markets because there was so much uncertainty till people felt comfortable and confident to say, okay, got to move forward, tariffs or not. There's still things that need to be made, products that need to get out. And so for us, I think that's kind of just opening that up.
All right. The next comment's kind of what you were saying earlier about the narratives. Despite the government shutdown and other negative indicators in the news, our business continues to grow to our surprise.
Yeah. I like I said, that is the resilience of a U.S. economy. We wouldn't be the economy we were if it wasn't as resilient as it is. And so for us, although it's driven a lot by consumer confidence and consumerism itself, at the same point, there is still production that takes place, and we're seeing that production at high levels, and we're seeing big projects that are still being laid out. And so there's still very exciting things to look forward to and to see on the horizon that kind of keep you motivated and keep that hope alive.
All right, last one. Cost of goods is up due to tariffs, but also some from the depreciating dollar. Hard to predict activity level with so much chaos regarding trade policy, end quote. Kind of a downer ending there.
Not necessarily. I mean, it is a reality when you see the things that go on. I mean, there is some play with the U.S. dollar. U.S. dollar in the early 2025 was giving a lot of room, but now has made a bounce back of the second part of the year. And so you'll see some play with that. That's definitely part of it. But for us, we don't get so caught up in those things that we can't necessarily control. What we do is we look at what is right in front of us in the business, and what we're doing is having those conversations with customers, continuing to serve the needs that they have and be the best vendor that we can. And I think that goes for all of our customers too. Is the same thing as it's easy to get caught in the fray of all that other stuff. And I think that we lose sight of who we are and what we need to do. And for the end of the day, we just need to sell fasteners, sell bolts, sell the things that we're doing. There you go. Sell, but also sell the value, overall value of what you bring to a customer who might feel that sense of uncertainty. How do you help them mitigate risk? How do you help them deal with some of the things that they're dealing with? How do you show the value you are as a partner? I think that's important.
Well, that's a good segue to go into. We're going to give you a chance to tell the listeners what's going on with you. And I mean, most listeners, I would assume, know that Star Stainless Screw is part of the LinFast Solutions Group. So what's going on with you guys?
So now that we've come down from the big Dodgers victory for the World Series, we can focus back in. We want to remind everybody that's absolutely. Who is it these days, Mike? Everybody should be. After back-to-back World Series, we should be very excited. But seriously speaking,
unless you're from Canada, you're still nursing the wounds. Right?
I know. I try not to talk about that with our Canadian LSG, so we keep that on the quiet. This is why hopefully only the U.S. will hear this segment. But
and I know that if you lose in a Game 7 extra innings, that scar never goes away.
It's brutal.
It's lifetime.
It's definitely brutal. That is for sure. But no, we're excited at LSG because we're seeing some things that we had been planning for a long time come to fruition. We're seeing this integration of facilities in Chicago and LA, our two largest markets, where now the three major brands, Selfast, Lindstrom, Star, are all under one building, working towards coordination with software that's coming down the road, working with AI to bring some new innovative ways of looking at quoting and for our sales platforms. I think that's going to be exciting. Looking at a new e-com platform that we're hoping to come out with in 2026 that I think will be exciting for everyone, where we could finally be on a single platform to be able to buy from the different divisions. For us, it's just been a whirlwind because there's a lot of things going on, but a lot of good things. And we're seeing that. We're listening to what customers have to say in those areas that we know that we should be better. And then now making it a reality. And I think that's the exciting part, is both making it a reality, but like at the speed at which it's being made a reality. This is the speed of business. And it's crazy to think that we'd be able to get some of the things we're getting done in such a short amount of time. But it speaks to the team that we have. I think that's one of the fundamentals of LSG is we hire really good people, and we have amazing teams that work together and get excited about working together to have this one LSG. And I think that's a true belief. You could have a bunch of strong little single robots. I grew up, I'm going to date myself. I don't know if you remember, Mike, but one of my favorite cartoons growing up was Voltron. And Voltron was one of my favorites because it was these little, it was a Japanese cartoon, but it was these little robots that would get into these battles. And when they're all by themselves, they're always losing that battle. But then they come together as this one big robot, and nobody can mess with Voltron. And I truly believe that that's LSG. We're kind of that Voltron that when we come together, man, it is impressive to see. It's fantastic. And I'm hoping that the market's going to continue to see the improvement of what master distribution looks like because of that. And I'm excited what that offers.
All right. Well, you got the Voltron analogy and the baseball analogy too.
You can't go wrong with the Dodgers and Voltron.
Right?
Exactly.
Just annihilate everybody. Right? Not annihilate, but good performance. I'll say it that way.
That's what we want to do. And I think that's a sign of a good company. Is it's not indicative of what's going on outside of your company. It's the internal drive. We know who we could be and what we should be. And we really do want to be the best version of ourselves. That's what drives us every single day. It's never the external aspects of it. It's the internal drive that should drive us. Because if it's external, that only goes so far. But if it's internally driven, every day you come in, it's going to be, what can we do to be better?
That's good. Well, it shows, you guys had a good presence in Las Vegas, which is the last one in Vegas. It'll be in Phoenix next year. But you had a good presence there, and a lot going on in the news. We've got some in the news segment. We got some personnel announcements coming up. So you guys are making things happen.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, we're excited. We're definitely seeing this growth and this vision that we have for who we could be. It's just exciting to be a part of.
Good. Anything else you want to add? Although you got me thinking about baseball. That two plays in the ninth inning, right?
That should always be on your mind.
Craziest thing I ever saw.
That should always be on your mind until the three-peat. You should continue to remember that.
I'm okay with the Dodgers. I'm a baseball fan, and there's some teams, and I'm old. I'll date myself that I remember. Tommy Lasorda and Kirk Gibson and Oral Hershiser. Always loved the Dodgers. Dodger blue. They were never never my hometown team, but I always admired the Dodgers. And back to the, I've read books about the Brooklyn Dodgers. So
I love it.
I feel bad for the Canadian, the Blue Jay fans, because 2016, we know what happened in Cleveland. So
anyway, that's true.
The Chicago put the knife in. Anyways, so good to talk to you on fasteners and baseball and cartoons.
Always good catching up with you, Mike.
All right. Well, thanks again for joining us, and we'll look forward to having you on again in the future.
Sounds great. Take care.
That was Star Stainless Group President Tim Roberto Jr. The FDI number for October 2025 was 55.3 versus 55.8 in September. Visit FDIsurvey.com to participate in the process and get a detailed PDF copy of Baird's monthly analysis. Now for today's top story. As heard earlier in the show, Allstate Fastener, also known as ASF, a leading global distributor in the automotive, industrial, and commercial fastener markets, appointed Dan Hill as Chief Executive Officer alongside a transformative remake of its senior leadership team. The leadership overhaul signals a bold new era of modernization, global expansion, and customer-focused growth for the third-generation family-owned company. ASF owner Paula Giorgio, on behalf of the board, said, quote, Dan brings a proven record of scaling privately held distribution businesses into global powerhouses. Having served on our board, Dan really understands the AFS culture, shares our growth vision, and has already immersed himself in our operations and people, end quote. ASF co-owner and board member Nick Giorgio added, quote, Allstate Fastener is moving forward with its renewed focus and determination to strengthen our presence in the fastener industry. We're committed to sales and operational excellence with a clear focus on attracting and retaining top talent and partnering with the best companies in American manufacturing and beyond, end quote. Dan Hill most recently served as CEO of private equity-backed Ferraro Foods, where he led expansive growth to more than $1.2 billion in revenues and executed a successful acquisition campaign. Previously, he served as CEO of Worth Industry North America and as Executive Vice President of the Worth Group. Dan said, quote, I'm thrilled to be coming back into an industry I truly love, especially to ASF, a company that's ready to compete and win on a global scale. With our entrepreneurial foundation, strong family ownership, and now world-class leadership team, we are positioned to modernize our systems, diversify and expand our customer base, and invest in the incredible people who make ASF what it is today, end quote. ASF's newly appointed senior leadership team includes Andrew Taylor as COO, John DeRiker as CFO, Laura Locker as Director of Human Resources, Patrick Muldowney, Director of Supply Chain, TJ Downey, Director of Sales and Operations, Darren Sioris, Director of Project Management, and Merceja Medmadovic, Director of Automotive Sales. Hill emphasized that the leadership transformation is part of a broader mandate to drive exponential growth through diversifications of ASFS customer base and strategic acquisitions of privately held fastener companies across America while innovating through critical investments in scalable technology. Hill concluded, quote, "If you're a fastener company looking for a strategic partner with resources, reach, and vision, Allstate should be your first call," end quote. Next up in today's Fastener Newsmaker headlines. In corporate news, AFC Industries launched AFC Tooling and AFC Aerospace and Defense. Easy Lock expanded its FinCerts product line. KBC Tools and Machinery celebrated 60 years of operation. Rotor Clip released a new 3D aerospace application video and launched a Spanish-language website. Bullhoff opened a production site in Turkey. The Fastener Industry Coalition, also known as the FIC, unveiled a new domain name and a refreshed website at www.thefic.org. Brower Metal achieved ISO 27001 certification. TriMas agreed to sell its TriMas Aerospace segment, and Kia and A. Raymond partnered on a solar project. In personnel news, Linfast Solutions Group, also known as LSG, welcomed Rosa E. Hearn as the new Vice President of Marketing and Joe Carlier as Senior Director of Global Accounts Outside Sales, and it named Mike Robinson Vice President Global Accounts. MW Components named Thomas A. Amato Chairman and CEO. MSC Industrial announced a planned CEO transition. Dominic Baird joined Lee S. Johnson Associates as Territory Manager. Fastenal named Max Tunnicliffe as CFO and Senior Executive Vice President. And Howmet Aerospace made executive leadership changes. You can get details on all of these stories and more in Fastener Technology International Magazine and the Fastener News Report and monthly newsletter, both available online at fastenertech.com. Now let's turn to the back page to talk about states in the USA. The United States runs on a federal system widely known as federalism. Power is split between its 50 states and Washington, D.C., and that structure creates natural competition as well as checks and balances. It also highlights the strengths and weaknesses of each state, and it shows where performance rises or falls. Competition and differences between states are important, and a few recent lists drove this point home to me. First, at a recent IFI event, the top states for manufacturing were named: Michigan, Indiana, Wisconsin, Ohio, and Kentucky. No surprises there. Those states built the backhouse of American industry and still carry a lot of weight. Next, the National Electric Manufacturers Association reported that 44% of the investment in electrical grids comes from just 5 states: North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Michigan. That tells you who is putting real effort and money towards power infrastructure. Then there's the reshoring story. The Reshoring Institute named GE Appliance of Louisville, Kentucky as the winner of its National Metalworking Reshoring Award for 2025. GE plans to invest $3 billion over 5 years to expand domestic production across its plants and microfactories in the USA. The money is being spent in Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Connecticut, and South Carolina. Finally, ITR Economics laid out 2 lists that should make people pay attention. They rank states based on risk and preparedness ahead of their forecast of a 2030 depression. The 10 least risk states in order are Utah, Georgia, Idaho, South Dakota, Oklahoma, Iowa, Alaska, Nebraska, Colorado, and South Carolina. The bottom 10, also in order, are Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Hawaii, New Jersey, New York, Vermont, California, Illinois, and Washington, D.C., which isn't actually a state, but a very powerful region. The patterns are hard to ignore. Some states are positioned for stability and growth, others are not. When you look at all 4 lists together, the point is clear. Our state system rewards initiative. States that invest, plan, and build are the ones gaining ground and ready to weather difficult times ahead. Others may rely too much on old assumptions and bad ideology. That's the nature of federalism. Competition exposes reality. Every state has its own identity, history, culture, and strengths, but the system works because those differences are allowed to exist. That's the value of the structure we inherited 250 years ago and still depend on today. As we look ahead, the question is, where does your state stand? This has been Mike McNulty of Fastener Technology International Magazine, bringing you the Fastener News Report. Please send your news, pictures, comments, corrections, or complaints to me at mcnulty@fastenertech.com.
Hey there, Fully Threaded Radio fans. We have been hearing a lot of tariff talks over the last couple of months. Put those concerns to rest with BTM Manufacturing, a domestic manufacturer of anchor bolts, single and double end studs, round and square bend U-bolts, and much, much more. BTM Manufacturing, a commitment to service.
Need USA-made plastic fasteners built for performance? Brighton Best International has you covered. Now you can add premium nylon 6x6 fasteners made in the USA by Volt Plastics to your next BBI order. Designed for construction, automotive, electrical, and medical industries, our nylon fasteners provide superior corrosion resistance, moisture protection, and non-conductive properties. Looking for strength without compromise? Reduce weight, boost durability, enhance chemical resistance. Find trusted nylon hex nuts, wing nuts, spacers, and flat washers at brightonbest.com. Tested, tried, and true. We are Brighton Best.
Well, hello everyone. This is Carmen Vertullo with your Fastener Training Minute, coming to you from the Fastener Training Institute and Carver Labs in beautiful El Cajon, California. Today's topic comes from a client who requested some hydrogen embrittlement testing, which is one of my favorite topics, as you know. And the client basically was having some product processed for electroplating to ASTM F1941/F1941M. And that standard requires hydrogen embrittlement testing. He did not really know what standard he wanted me to use for the testing, so he listed several. He said ASTM F606. He listed ISO 15330. He listed ASTM F1940. He listed ASTM F1624. He listed ASTM F519. He listed NASM 1312-5, and he even listed an obscure DIN standard called DIN 50969-2. And he didn't know which one he wanted, but he wanted me to figure out which one was the most appropriate. That is an insanely abusive question, I have to say. However, that's the business I'm in, so I took the abuse and I got him his answer. When I return, I'll tell you what that answer was.
You hear that? Your line is speaking to you. It's asking you a question. Are we good enough? Is good enough good enough? Are we delivering the best possible solution? Will what we make stand the test of time? Can we be bigger, faster, safer, smarter? Can we get what we need before we need it? Can we increase production? Can we be more precise? Can we work day and night for weeks on end? Can we create what's never been done? Yes, we can. Let's discover your worth.
Solution Man, Ken.
Solution Man, you're my fastener hero.
Just doing my job, ma'am.
SOLUTION, SOLUTIO. Solution Industry. We are Solution.
Welcome back to the Fastener Training Minute. Today we're talking about test standards for hydrogen embrittlement, primarily for fasteners. Now, I listed a whole bunch of standards right before the break. I'm not going to list them again, but it turns out that 3 of those standards are really not appropriate for finished fasteners already made. Those are ASTM F1940, That standard is for the process control testing for hydrogen embrittlement. That is, if you would like to be able to prove that your process is under control in the plating or coating operation, you would use that test. It's expensive and requires special specimens. ASTM F1624 similarly is a hydrogen embrittlement susceptibility testing process that requires special specimens as well. It's very expensive. It's designed to know whether or not a particular plating or coating process in combination with a particular material or a standardized material is going to be a hydrogen embrittlement producing combination. And then a similar one, ASTM F519, also tests for hydrogen embrittlement susceptibility. And it basically deals with plating and coating, but also the environment. So we can test whether or not our product is going to be subject to environmental hydrogen embrittlement or external hydrogen embrittlement. Now, I apologize if you don't know what hydrogen embrittlement is. I'll just give you a quick 30-second explanation. High hardness materials, steel, fasteners in particular, are susceptible to catastrophic failure by a process called hydrogen embrittlement. If hydrogen gets into the part and the part is put under a load, generally that hydrogen gets there through the electroplating process. We call that internal hydrogen embrittlement. We install the part. A short time later, it fails catastrophically. We also have a type of hydrogen embrittlement called external or environmental hydrogen embrittlement, and that's when the hydrogen gets into the part from the environment, usually because the environment is causing the fastener to corrode or something around it to corrode. That generates hydrogen. Steel likes to soak it up like a sponge, and then we have that failure. So having said that, fasteners are particularly susceptible because, unlike every other part of any particular assembly, they are under a tensile load. Everything else is being squeezed together by the fastener. The fastener itself is under a great tensile load. So of those standards that I mentioned earlier, 4 of them actually are for testing fasteners, or at least they contain within them processes for testing fasteners. ASTM F606 fastener test methods has all kinds of fastener testing in it. One particular type is for testing for hydrogen embrittlement. These tests are called stress durability tests. ISO 15330 is exclusively for testing fasteners for hydrogen embrittlement. NASM 1312-5 is exclusively for testing aerospace fasteners for hydrogen embrittlement. And that DIN 50969 has to do with structural bolts that are metric, and nobody uses that I know of. So these fasteners happen to be very small metric fasteners in the range of M2 to M8. So I immediately took the DIN standard off the list, and I started figuring out which one is most appropriate. I already know, for example, from years of doing testing, that ISO 15330 is the best of the 3 left behind ones. That's 15330, ASTM F606, and NASM 1312-5. For a variety of reasons, it's the best. First, it's a metric fastener, so that helps. Secondly, it does not require any weird apparatus, just a test plate. You don't have to have any load cells. You don't have to have any wedges. You don't have to have anything but actually a torque wrench to do this test. And it is the best at detecting the hydrogen embrittlement because, in my opinion, it applies the greatest load. To apply the load using ISO 15330, we simply screw the fastener into a hardened test plate with a hardened top surface. It could be a washer. We use some lubricant. We torque it with an indicating torque wrench until the torque stops going up. It ain't getting no tighter than that, no matter what you do. So that is the best, I should say, load or highest load that we can put on that fastener, and that's the object of the game. We wait for 24 hours. We give it another little snug. We wait 48 hours. We give it another little snug with the torque wrench. No broken fasteners. Then you have a passing test. Normally, if you have a failure, it's going to break on its own. It's not going to break when you retighten it. That's a simple test. ASTM F606 is similar to that, except for fasteners over 1/4 of an inch, it wants you to put a wedge under the head. Now, that's a relatively brutal thing, too. It's going to detect the load, but now you have to come up with a freaking wedge, all right? So that's a problem. For the smaller screws that don't require a wedge, though, we only tighten to 80% of the tensile strength, and we have to figure out what the hell that is. So you have to do a calculation, use a lubricant, use a load cell, whatever. They want you to know what that is. Also, F606 requires, after you've done the test and removed the screws that did not break, you got a successful result, you have to examine it with 20 times magnification. Another pain in the ass, and that adds to the cost. And then finally, there's NASM 1312-5, which in some regards is the most forgiving of all, because almost every paragraph in it says, do this, but you can do something else if you want to. You know, any other thing that works is fine. So it's a relatively wide open standard. However, it requires at the end not a visual examination, but a magnetic particle inspection. So that adds to the time, the lead time, the cost, and so on. Generally, if you have an HE failure, the frickin' head's going to come off or the part's going to break in the threads. These inspections are kind of silly. In my mind, I've never done one where either the visual examination or the non-destructive inspection has detected a crack. If you've got HE, the bolt is going to break. So having said all that, ISO 15330 is the winner, and that's the one that I recommend 100% of the time unless there's a compelling reason not to use it. And that only compelling reason would be the ignorance of somebody who put it on a drawing or is requiring it on a purchase order, in which case you can send them to me and I'll talk them out of it. Well, there are some other hydrogen embrittlement tests, for example, for nuts or other things that are weird. I didn't talk about those here, but generally ISO 15330, in my opinion, is the go-to test standard. I will tell you it's right now being modified. We are right in the middle of changing that standard to fix a few silly things. Like it says in it, you should do this test right after plating within 24 hours. Well, that we know that's BS now. And also not very practical. A few other things in it that we're tuning up. So within a few months, ISO 15330 will not only be the best standard as it always was for HE testing, it'll also be much improved on top of being the best. ASTM F606 also just got modified, didn't do much improvement to it. We did clear up the requirement for wedges because it never did address wedges for smaller screws. Now it addresses the wedge. It just says the wedge angle is 0. So there's no wedge. That's about all I can think of on the topic. This has been Carmen Vertullo with the Fastener Training Minute. I hope you learned something. Thanks for listening.
This is Leo Core, editor of Distributors Link magazine, and you're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Dan Walker, Preston Boyd. It's been a long time coming. Glad you guys are on the podcast.
Thank you, Eric. Glad to be here.
Thanks so much, Eric.
So we've been talking for a long time about this. I think it started back at Fastener Week in Chicago, again in Vegas, then most recently in Louisville. Now we're here. You have a lot going on at the IFI. And, you could say that this segment has been like 8 years in the making, couldn't you, Dan?
I guess you could say that, Eric. I mean, you are the first person in the fastener industry I ever met.
What are the odds?
Well, I boarded an airplane and sat next to this guy wearing a Kerr Lakeside hat, and it was you. And right then and there, you asked me to be on the podcast, and I think you scared me to death.
Well, when I found out that you were the new executive director of the Industrial Fasteners Institute, I was not going to pass that up, Dan. I just didn't know it was going to take me this long to get you here.
Well, I didn't know it was going to take this long for me to finally have something to say.
Meanwhile, the soft-spoken Preston Boyd's in the background here, and little did I know that you had a hand in a lot of this going back, way back, Rob Harris time.
Yeah, Eric, I had the distinct opportunity when I was the chairman of the IFI to sort of head up the search committee and come up with a replacement for Rob Harris. And those were very big shoes to fill. So you met Dan 8 years ago. I met him about 10 years ago when he was an applicant for Rob's job. I also have the distinction of being the guy that didn't hire Dan, and my wife never lets me forget that.
So what year was that then that you were IFI chairman? Do you recall?
Yeah, 2017, you get both years. You're only there for a year, but you span across 2017 and 2018 was my opportunity at the helm. And it was a very difficult decision because Rob had been such a fixture, and the chairman really didn't have much to do because Rob ran the organization so well. And to lose him at that point in time was a milestone in the history of the IFI.
Rob Harris was a very interesting man. He probably deserves a dedicated segment one of these days. We should think about that. Well, as history unrolled, we met each other, Dan, as you said, about 8 years ago, and you were just starting out. A lot of things have happened with the IFI. One thing in particular I've noticed, and I mentioned this to you guys during our meetings this summer, is you seem to have a much larger profile on the distribution side, whereas when I first got into this business back in 2006, it was kind of mysterious. What's the IFI? And we certainly never saw you at the Vegas show and things like that, but you're changing that, aren't you?
Well, we are, and we've always actually been exhibiting at the show, but we've taken a much more active role in everything. And you'll probably see us a lot more on social media through LinkedIn, and we've got a newsletter now we're sending out. So much of what the IFI has been doing, for probably the last 25 years, from the outside is almost a mystery, or like I would like to say, the best kept secret in the industry. It's an organization that's really dedicated to manufacturing, and so our membership is primarily manufacturers and their suppliers. And so we don't have distributors as members, although our members oftentimes do partner and work with distributors.
Right. And I think it's going both ways too. People are becoming more interested in the manufacturing side, given the times we live in, right? Everything. I mean, I was out there in Louisville my first time this fall. I noticed other companies that were first timers, such as InSequel Software, thinking along the same lines.
You're right. Our membership has grown tremendously, and I'm going to kick it to Preston to talk about the membership growth because he's had an integral role in making that happen for us.
Thank you, Dan. I think, you can't discount the impact of COVID on people's need or involvement in associations. I think, both the IFI is experiencing growth. I know, from attending the regional association meetings, that people just feel the need to connect again, and I think that's been the underlying current with the IFI being more visible is that we are attending those events and participating. But I think overall the attendance at all these regional shows helps promote that as well. So it wasn't an intended strategy. I think it was just a consequence of what we're all facing, and certainly the tariff situation has put more importance on the domestic manufacturers as well. So we are interacting more with the distributors because the market demands it.
Yeah, a minute ago, I didn't mean to imply that you had no presence whatsoever at these shows. It just seems like it's very amplified and people are paying more attention. I guess that would have been a better way to say it.
No, you're right, Eric. We really kind of sat back and experienced the show more than contributed to it. And that's our goal moving forward, is to be playing a much more contributory role in the success of these trade shows and the exhibitors that are at the shows. We're encouraging our members to attend those shows and even planning our own divisional meetings to take place during the trade shows in order to capture a larger crowd of people so we can have more interaction.
Well, we're going to talk about your apprenticeship program, and that is one of the big flagship planks of your administration, if you will, or what you're trying to do, Dan, which is great. And it plays right into that whole idea of an increased demand on domestically produced material. in addition to that, the IFI is doing so many things that I think before we get into that topic, we should run down that quickly so that people really can appreciate it, those who haven't caught on yet. So one of the things that I took away from your support of the Midwest Fastener Association Fastener Week this year, of course, was meeting Lauren Baker. And he's, I guess, semi-retired now. Jennifer Baker Reed, is running things mostly over there. But he had a presentation. He's a very, very interesting man. And the two of them have done a lot to represent fastener manufacturing in Washington. Amazing.
Absolutely. We started our long relationship with the Lauren Baker Group during the Fastener Quality Act work that was being done by a lot of partners in the industry. And IFI felt that it was very important to retain Government Affairs Counsel, to have somebody in Washington, D.C. that was watching after the interests of manufacturers, but also the industry at large. And they played a pivotal role in making sure that that legislation was passed and that it worked for everyone.
I was on the IFI website earlier. By the way, that's infast.org. And I went to that page. You've got a PDF download of the Fastener Quality Act and kind of a cheat sheet of fact notes available. That's very helpful. People don't realize the impact that the Quality Fastener Act really had on the industry. It's kind of ancient history now, but it's still very important, isn't it?
It is. And we, that there were some questions about whether or not we should actually take that off the website because it's older information, but it certainly is still relevant. And things crop up every day with regard to quality, and that reminder that manufacturers have such robust quality programs today. It's important, I think, to keep that information up there and make sure the history isn't lost with new people that get in the industry.
Yeah, it wasn't always that way. Okay, so in addition to the lobbying efforts, there's a tremendous amount of work, of course, that the IFI does with standards. And Independence, Ohio is your actual physical headquarters. And I know you provide a lot of support for standards committees and so forth there too. Excellent facility. I'm so fortunate that I live so close to it and get a chance to get out there occasionally.
That's right, Eric. IFI is actually headquartered in Independence, and we're in the offices of the Precision Metal Forming Association. We're located in their building. And PMA and IFI and now the Forging Industry Association are all co-located in this facility. Although we're independent organizations, we do a lot of sharing and a lot of learning with each other. And, our collective staffs can really work together in concert on things. And, we can learn a lot from each other.
So speak about the IFI technical materials that are available and the wide variety of online resources that you're providing.
Well, thanks for bringing that up, Eric. It's always good to promote the stuff that we're doing because I think people tend to forget that we have a technical committee and we have members that are actively working on standards committees. We're not just a publisher of standards. Everyone is familiar with the online Book of Fastener Standards and our hard copy Book of Fastener Standards. We've done multiple editions of that, and that's been kind of a Bible for the industry. But in that document, we have IFI standards, we have standards from other organizations, but our members are active on all those committees, not just writing IFI standards, but also ASTM standards and SAE standards. We also work on aerospace standards and other types of standards that aren't even in the book. And so we have a very vibrant and active technical committee with the industry's technical experts that work on those things. From time to time, we have to publish our own standards where there's a gap in an existing standard, and we'll do that. And then many times that document will live for a while and become an industry standard, and then it gets usually absorbed into a larger standards body because there's more interest in it and people want to develop it further. And so we'll actually give our standards to other organizations sometimes to have them develop as their own with our participation. We also, I mentioned the online Book of Fastener Standards. We have the IFI Technology Connection as well, which I think a lot of people understand what that is, but it is basically like a database of all the data in the standards. And so our subscribers can use that tool to write spec sheets when they advertise or when they're working with their salespeople to come up with solutions for their customers. And so that's a pretty popular solution that we have.
Wasn't that one of the big initiatives that Joe Greenslade was really behind?
It really was. And Joe drove that thing. It was his concept, actually. And so that was Joe's brainchild. And for many years, he helped us develop that. Joe was a brilliant man. And he had the forethought to come up with that. And Joe's been gone for some time now. But when he was alive, he was still working with us on continuing to keep it updated and helping to brainstorm ways to make that tool better. So the management of that tool has been given to Salim Brahimi. And so Salim is the one that safeguards the data in there and makes sure it's all kept up to date. But initially, that was Joe Greenslate's brainchild.
Yeah, he was way ahead of his time. Not surprising. But fortunately, it's in good hands with Salim.
It is.
Well, Preston, just out of curiosity, do you have a favorite IFI standard?
No, but I can put together a heck of a scramble team. So,
all right. Of course, I was asking that in jest, Preston, but I I wanted to point out that you're on the industrial side primarily of the IFI these days, and the organization is really divided into several units, isn't it?
It is. We have our aerospace division. So there's a gentleman, Mike McNulty, who performs the same services to that membership group that I do with the industrial products. And then on the automotive side, we've got Mark Quebman, who's probably got 2 to 3 decades of automotive experience coming out of Simplex. So Mark he's got a wealth of background dealing with the big automotive companies.
I was talking to Mike in Louisville about his endeavors with additive manufacturing. Man, he is really on fire over that stuff.
Very, very passionate, isn't he? He's a phenomenal guy. I mean, just a wealth of information.
Yeah, Eric, we're very fortunate to have some people with a lot of experience working in the IFI staff. Most people are familiar with Lawrence Klaus. Of course, Lawrence just won an award at the IFE show, so congratulations to Lawrence on that. We're very proud of that. And Salim Brahimi, which everybody knows, you've had him on the podcast before too. He's our technical director. He's got a PhD in metallurgy and runs the hydrogen embrittlement laboratory in Montreal at McGill University. But most people probably don't really know that we have the 3 division managers, and they have a wealth of experience, Mike and Mark and Preston. And they're invaluable to the IFI because they really understand the divisions that they work for, because IFI is divided into end customer divisions now. In the past, we were divided by fastener size, but now it's end customer groups. And so that was a smart move. And that was under Rob Harris's tenure that happened. But it made most sense, actually, because, being able to be responsive to the needs of those customer groups was very important and makes sense for that type of organization. But we also have an ASD division. We call that ASD. It's Associate Supplier Division. And so that's the companies who make the manufacturing equipment, the people that supply the products and services, the outside services that manufacturers need. So it's a pretty vibrant organization with over 180 members now.
That number 180 sticks out in my mind because if I recall, that was roughly the number of attendees that you had in Louisville this year for the fall conference.
It was. We didn't have a person from each company, unfortunately, but we had very good attendance at that meeting. That was the highest attended fall meeting we've ever had. We have 2 meetings a year primarily for all the members, 2 membership meetings, one in the spring, and we call it our annual meeting. And then the fall, we have a meeting. And 180 was definitely the top for us. In the past, we would get 90 to 100 people at a meeting like that. But it's a sign of the times that people are, like Preston said, really flocking to their association and participating. At our spring meetings now, we're getting upwards of 250 people. And that's just amazing because the numbers just continue to grow.
Wow. Yeah, that's really impressive. And you could feel the energy. I mean, it's high. And I was surprised when the current chairman, Larry Spellman, went to the podium for the keynote or the initial address and said, okay, we're going to go around the room now and everybody's going to stand up and introduce themselves. And I said to myself, you have to be kidding me. But he did it. And we went around the room. It took like 15 minutes. Everybody said their name, where they were from. And although it seemed a little strange to me at first, by the time it got rolling, I felt like, yeah, this is a smart thing to do. And that was just kind of it seemed like the energy in the room. It was just perfect for that.
Yeah, every person that comes to the meeting is important. And you know what it's like when you're it's the first time you attend something and you feel like you're an outsider and you don't really know anybody. And so we know that it's important to do that. And so we do it at every meeting.
Yeah, very cool. All right. So we've talked about some of the things that you guys are doing. Did I miss any of the biggies before we get into your apprenticeship subject?
Well, we've got a lot of other things going. I'd like to really focus on apprenticeship, but we have our member training program, our government affairs program. We have all of our committee work that we're doing. All that's important, but I really would love to talk about our apprenticeship program because that is the newest thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive right in. We were, oddly enough, just talking with Tony Martinez from Buckeye Fasteners earlier in the podcast. He pointed out the exact scenario that you're looking to address with this. And of course, we talked about it extensively over the summer at these meetings, and we'll just tee off on that, guys.
Sure. I think it's pretty obvious, no matter what kind of manufacturing you do or whatever type of business that you have, that the biggest problem industry faces today is a lack of skilled workers. And not just being able to train them, but also being able to find them. Where are they going to come from? Where are you going to get somebody with the skills you need? Oftentimes you're hiring someone who has very little in terms of skills because they don't take shop class in high school. Metal shop is not offered in many places now. And so people don't just arrive on day one knowing how to operate a machine, or some of them don't even know shop math or understand any of the safety things they need to know to work in a modern manufacturing facility. And so, we partnered with Marshall University's Advanced Manufacturing Center about 2 years ago to start on the process of developing an industry-wide apprenticeship program for the machine operators. And so I'm really happy to say that we have successfully launched that program now, and it's up and running, and we have 13 IFI member companies already involved in the process. Some are at different stages, but there are 13 companies that have inquired and started the process now, which is fantastic to hear.
Eric, I had the pleasure earlier this week of visiting the Marshall facility over in Huntington, West Virginia, and spending time with the people there. We talked primarily about how the process is going to take place with new candidate companies coming in from the IFI, and this organization over there is they're a pretty special group of people, 30 strong and growing, and their purpose, or the genesis actually of Marshall, was to support the Department of Defense. The Department of Defense created the funding and supported Marshall to go out and begin to build the supply base for the Department of Defense. They recognized, that the impact of the lack of skilled workers was having on the ability to build ships, to develop new tools for the Army. And so that's the background of this program. Critical, essential manufacturers being able to provide the United States military with the tools they need to defend our freedom. So it's a pretty dynamic organization over there. They've got a lot of programs that have already been put in place that we'll be able to leverage off of. So we're excited about it. I think it's a real game changer in how we're going to get this implemented with our membership. The playbook is there. We just have to adapt it to the fastener industry, and it's going to happen quickly. As Dan mentioned, we've already had 13 companies sign on to help them become more competitive and go out and attract the type of individuals they need to staff their facilities.
Okay, so let's then backtrack here and frame out what the program actually entails.
Yeah, you're a good question, Eric, and it's important to note that IFI has had some successful programs before, that we are still involved in. One at Compton College in Los Angeles, where they do some training at that community college and they do hands-on work with heading machines and other equipment. Those programs are much shorter than this one. Those programs are like 6 weeks. And then the person gets turned over to the company, they get hired, and then they learn how to operate machines from more experienced operators at those companies. This is different. This is much different. This is a longer commitment. It's around 2 years in the apprenticeship program. And the big difference is they don't start at a university or in a shop somewhere, sponsored by the state or, at a school. They actually get hired by the company first. And then they enter the apprenticeship program under the watchful eye of the company with the support of Marshall University. And so they start that process. And there's a whole series of different steps that come along in the process as they build their competency and they move up the chain within the apprenticeship program. There are essentially 3 different apprenticeship programs that are out there. Two of them are a little bit different. One is for hot forging machines. One is for cold forging machines. And then one is a combination of that, which is hot and cold forging. And like Preston said, this program really builds off the successful implementation of other apprenticeship programs that have come before this, but it's unique in that it focuses on the fastener manufacturer's equipment. And so, you can get an apprenticeship program to come alongside this one in electrical maintenance, industrial maintenance, precision machining, quality control, tool and die making, CNC, and now hot and cold forging machines. And so those types of operations are used in all of our members' facilities today. And so you don't just pick one program necessarily. I mean, you can have more than one program running at the same time, depending on the type of people you want to get skilled.
Okay, so that, I think, clears something up for me. Students do not have to, or apprentices, I guess you'll call them, do not have to be in West Virginia during this program.
No, they don't. And I'm glad you brought that up because this is a national model. And so we have members that are in Arizona that are involved in this program, California, some that are in Massachusetts, some that are in Ohio, some that are in Detroit, some that are in Chicago. They're everywhere. And Marshall does support the program everywhere, but very little training would ever be done at the Marshall University facility in West Virginia. It would all be done in the members' plant. And so the process, as it begins, it's like a 5-step process where if a company expresses interest in doing this, Marshall will come out to your facility and they'll visit you, have a conversation with you about the type of occupations you'd like to enter into the apprenticeship program. They customize and finalize the on-the-job training competencies and the training plan with you. They help you identify the mentors within your own company, and they perform train-the-trainer operations with them to make sure that your best header operator is not necessarily the best teacher, but they make your header operator into a better teacher because they're going to be apprenticing. These people are going to be apprenticing underneath that person. Then they do a signing ceremony with the company and set your launch date. And then they provide ongoing support throughout the whole process. And it's not just a 2-year fixed process either, Eric. It's a requirement of 4,000 hours of training, which is about 2 years.
Wow.
That can take place over a 4-year period or longer if it has to, because someone might take a break or have reasons why they can't finish it in 4,000 consecutive hours. That's not the idea. But there is 4,000 hours worth of touch points in that program that make someone competent to be a header operator. And any manufacturer will tell you it takes that longer to do it on their own anyway. Sometimes I've heard members say, people that operate the most complex machines in the plant, that it could take 6 to 8 years to get that person competent to operate that machine on their own. And so this program really is an accelerator, I think, for our members to help them get there faster with a more structured program. So it's not one-off individual programs being implemented by companies. There are two things about the program that I want people to know. There's something in this for both sides. So manufacturers get the benefit of having a structured program. It is fully funded, so it doesn't cost them anything to do this. They don't have to spend a penny. Marshall University provides all that support through grants that they have. So they don't have to pay anything. They do have to pay their employees. So they're paying an hourly wage. But they get the benefit of having an industry that's full of competent, trained people that they can hire. If people move around, the apprentices can take with them that credential. So this is a transferable credential that these people have. What we're trying to do here is professionalize header operators, just like plumbers and electricians and carpenters have been professionalized through their apprenticeship programs.
Sure. I follow you. So as we know, the journeyman headermen that are in the industry are highly professional by and large. And this has been a problem of getting new recruits up to speed and operational. It sounds like this is a great ticket. Now, let me ask you this, guys. One of the fundamental challenges with this whole thing is getting people in the system in the first place. So does it also address basic recruitment?
I'll answer that based on some of my history running a heading operation. And that's a significant challenge, Eric, is getting people in the door. And Marshall does focus part of their efforts, in training the HR department is to talk about best practices and what's been successful for other companies that they've worked with. Certainly trying to get people engaged at the high school level, technical college level, and they bring many insights into how successful companies are gaining on getting people, applicants, qualified applicants, just to come inside their building and take a look at the employment opportunity. So it's a total playbook that they develop. And as Dan mentioned, if you were to try to monetize what they bring to the party, it's probably a $12,000 to $15,000 program that they're going to bring in for free. I mean, our members are going to get this entire package and the assistance of all the personnel at Marshall to launch the program. They've got some technology that I saw when I was over there this week. They will go in and video, that seasoned senior machine operator. And rather than wait for him to be able to explain what he's doing, they will then video that and then professionally edit that and make that part of the package for the apprentice as he progresses. So again, at some point, that senior machine operator is going to walk out the door. What this does is it retains that knowledge and that generational gap that would have been there when he left, because he was the only guy that knew how to set up for a particular product or a particular diameter on a machine. So it's an entire package that starts with getting the applicants coming in the front door.
Well, that sounds like a tremendous process. And if I do say so, it sounds like you're actually addressing two challenges that the industry has, one being bringing new people up to speed, but the other is preserving some of that institutional knowledge that's leaving. And people have been very concerned about that. It sounds like it's a great solution.
It really is. I mean, it's not a silver bullet by any means. And, companies that maybe find it to be too daunting to get involved in a program like this right off the bat actually have another option at Marshall, and that is the pre-apprenticeship program. Also, no cost to do that, but they can be involved early on where they're not really on the books yet for apprentices. They're not officially enrolled in the program, but they can still take advantage of all the online training tools, the other training tools Marshall develops, the mentoring and all those things. And the hope is that they'll get into a full-blown apprenticeship program. But that's a terrific way to start. And actually will give them access to some of the thousands of online training classes that are available in the shop math and the employee onboarding and the safety and all those things that they have to have. In addition, companies that are involved in an apprenticeship program actually become open to applying for grants to help pay for things that are available from DoD through a program called METAL that I can send you some more information on, where people can look that up. But the METAL program actually can provide things like PPE, training materials, computers, and other things for companies that have apprentices on their staff. And so there's a lot of incentives aside from the business incentives of growing your workforce and having more competent and skilled workers, but also some assistance in making sure that you have all the things that they need to be successful.
I think a lot of the people who are involved in manufacturing who are listening, you've captured their attention, Dan and Preston. How do they get on board with all this? First of all, they probably have to be IFI members, right?
They actually don't, Eric. I mean, we encourage them to join because we have all sorts of other benefits that they would get from it. We help develop the program. Changes to the program are probably going to come from within the IFI because of our membership base. But any manufacturer can actually approach Marshall. It's a publicly funded program, and so they're using tax dollars to support this. And so I would encourage anybody to inquire with Marshall. And if they want to get in touch with somebody, I don't care if it's an IFI member or not, they can contact me. Just go to the IFI website, go to the contact page, and send me a message, and I'll connect them with Marshall so they can get that journey started.
Then Marshall is really the on-ramp for this.
It is. I mean, it all started with the IFI working with Marshall to develop it. I mean, we're all for recruiting companies to come and join IFI if it's a good fit for them. And I think it is. And of course, we have other resources that go into that program that are available to our members to encourage them to take part in the apprenticeship program. But we're here to also help keep the industry healthy. And Marshall's got publicly funded program here, so it's available to everyone.
All right. Well, on the subject of IFI recruitment, Preston, I've seen you in action making the case. Here's your chance to lay it out for the Fully Threaded audience in case there are any prospective members in the audience.
I think the value that membership in the IFI, it starts with the relationships, But again, what we're going to hopefully gain from this apprenticeship program is a collaborative effort of those 13 companies that are starting. We're going to learn a lot. Some of the challenges, the headwinds we're going to run into, and we're going to learn a lot about how to successfully implement a program. So that's almost part of the creed of the IFI is we're stronger, when we're holding hands and going forward and addressing things like this. And I can tell you, since 2017, when I was chairman, workforce development has been the primary challenge for all of the IFI manufacturing members. So I just feel as though, we're going to make some quantum strides as we kick off this program, and the success and how that success happened is going to be part of the secret sauce, that we're going to share with other IFI members. So I think there's value if workforce development is your primary problem. I think we've got a value proposition here with membership in the IFI that'll help address that for you.
Everyone is familiar with Lawrence Klaus and the work that he does. You see him with the Fastener Training Institute teaching classes. Lawrence also is IFI's Director of Education and Training. All IFI members receive our training programs for no cost. These are training programs that you would pay thousands of dollars for per student. If you sent 4 of your people to the IFI headquarters, we'll give them breakfast, we'll give them lunch, and we'll teach them for 2 days straight on topics of interest that are going to help your company be successful. That doesn't cost you anything except a car ride or a plane ticket if you're further away from Cleveland. And we also do webinars throughout the year. I would encourage anybody to go and look at the IFI website, go on the events calendar, take a look at the training that's coming up in the future. We've got the next 6 months at least up there of all the classes that we're teaching. And then all IFI members have access to an online training system called WorkForge, and there's no cost to that either. That's the same program that Marshall uses for the apprentices. And so if you're interested in getting involved in apprenticeship, the first place to start is, I would say, join the IFI. Get involved in our online training. Get involved in our in-person training. Take advantage of the WorkForge membership. Familiarize your staff with how to manage that, how to train their people. Then enter the pre-apprenticeship process with Marshall. From there, enter the apprenticeship process. You're going to come out a much more successful company on the other side.
Wow. Okay. WorkForge. We'll put that in the show notes as well as a couple of the other key links from this conversation. So listeners will be able to get out there for quick reference.
Absolutely. I mean, when you look at the benefit of the training alone, the training in the WorkForge, our government affairs people will set up meetings with your congressman or your senator. We do fly-ins in Washington. You're receiving all these legislative updates on a weekly basis. In addition to anything about EPA, Energy Star, CBAM, all the other environmental regulations that are going on, that's all stuff that IFI members get every day. And so those are sort of the unspoken benefits, that you get when you're an IFI member. I mean, the networking is great. And absolutely. I mean, you're in the room with the leaders of the industry. If you're interested in talking to manufacturers and you want to meet the leadership, come to an IFI meeting because that's where they're at.
All right. Well, that says it all. Guys, I appreciate you sharing all this. You got me excited about it. I want to go to the spring meeting now. Where's it going to be?
That's in Scottsdale, Arizona. The dates are March 7th through 10th. It's at the Omni Scottsdale Resort and Spa at Monte Lucia, right at the base of Camelback Mountain. And our golf outing, if we want to talk about golf, sometimes you do, that is going to be held at the Camelback Country Club, which is a fantastic venue.
Oh, okay. So you cut me off at the pass there, Dan, because I was going to wind down the conversation with a pointed question to you that I think I raised back 8 years ago on that fortuitous flight to Vegas where we first met out on our way to the Vegas show. And it has to do with this idea that I dreamed up years ago where the IFI plays the NFDA in a golf outing. And for some reason, I've never been able to get it to take shape. Maybe the time's coming.
Well, the good golfer on this podcast right now is Preston Boyd. So I'll let him address this controversial issue. Keep bringing up.
We're doing a really good job of recruiting new members, but specifically we're focused on people like Big Country, Rob Reynolds as a member to add to the IFI team. So no, there's a number of good golfers within the IFI organization, and I know, Eric, we just somehow have to make that thing happen.
We'll have to fight over who gets Rob.
I was just going to say that, and there's a couple others I could think of. Yeah, distribution's going to fight for him and a few others too. So, wow. Okay, well, I knew it was a can of worms. I didn't understand exactly why, but maybe we could talk it over in Scottsdale some more. What do you think?
Sounds good.
Sounds like a great idea.
Okay, well, thanks again, gentlemen, for coming on. You do great work at the Industrial Fastener Institute. Again, the website for that, indfast.org. We'll put some links up in the show notes today so you have easy access to some of the highlights of this conversation. So keep it up, guys.
Yep, thanks for having us on, Eric. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks for all you do, Eric.
And we'll be back to wind this one down in just a minute.
Are you tired of empty promises from software vendors? Are you paying for support that you're not receiving? Is it time for another paid upgrade? There is a solution. NSQL delivers quality software designed for the fastener industry at an affordable price with industry-leading support. Quality software, affordable pricing, industry-leading support. Only NSQL can deliver all three. INXSQL.com.
Gerbil Fasteners has consistently increased its stock inventory in Houston, Texas, as well as focused on developing new, innovative battery-powered cordless tools to improve industry efficiency. Our company's strategy is to provide a level of quality and innovation that stands out among the rest. If you are interested in being part of a brand that is revolutionizing the industry, make sure to contact Gerbil Fasteners today to see what we have to offer. Gerbil Fasteners, the leading rivet source.
Hey, boys and girls, it's Craig Penland with Eurolink Fastener Supply Service, and you are listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Brian and Eric back with you to close out another one. Hey, Brian, do you have a favorite ASME standard?
No particular one. To me, they're all a little troublesome because they differ very slightly for the ASTM standards, which I've had to deal with.
Now, you're always coding around all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. I have to tell the difference. It's really awkward.
Well, I'm going to go with ASME B18.2.1, kind of the king of the hex head cap screw standards, in keeping with our comment on the OpenAI logo earlier.
Very good. Okay.
I guess I should be agnostic about all that, though, because really, we're equal opportunity fastener guys.
Yeah, we try to be.
As are Dan Walker and Preston Boyd of the Industrial Fasteners Institute. They're doing good work, bringing higher visibility to the IFI, and I think a lot more distributors are paying attention to them as a result, and the new apprenticeship program makes a lot of sense. Very good to see. Also like to thank Mike McNulty and Tim Roberto Jr. Great commentary on another exciting FDI this month, guys, and congratulations on your Dodgers, Tim. Did you notice how Mike really perked up at the end there when they started talking about baseball?
Yeah, right. Even though he's really focused.
He is. He's extremely focused on fasteners. But I tell you, man, you want to divert his attention? Talk to Mike McNulty about baseball. He always lightens up.
Right.
Also on the podcast today, we heard from Allstate Fasteners CEO Dan Hill and barbecue connoisseur Tony Martinez of Buckeye Fasteners. Carmen Vertullo had the Fastener Training Minute. We also heard from Marco Rodriguez of Cressa with his commercial real estate update. Thanks, guys. Lots of good info on the episode today. The title sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio are Star Stainless, Global Fasteners, and Brighton Best International. Fully Threaded Radio is also sponsored by Buckeye Fasteners, BTM Manufacturing, Eurolink Fastener Supply Service, Indries International, Cressa, InSequel Software, Fastener Technology International, J. Lanfranco, MW Components, Solution Industries, Volt Industrial Plastics, and Worth Industry USA. Our email address is ftr@fullythreaded.com. Let us know what you think of the show, or if you've got suggestions, fire away. And before we roll out of here, Bri, one final point to note. This was picked up by McNulty on the news report. The FIC, Fastener Industry Coalition, that is, sent out a press release recently announcing their new domain and website. Get out to thefic.org to see it. That's thefic.org. You can see their new website. Looks like they're re-energizing themselves, regrouping, and they're going to make another thrust at industry relevance. What do you think, Bri?
Really? Okay. Just in case you don't know, it's the Fastener Industry Coalition, okay?
Apparently, Harpo's quite excited by this news.
You're right. More so than... Anyway, good. I'll go and look at their website, okay?
One of the things that I think they're trying to achieve with this is to put a single point of access for all of the organization calendars, because it's always a headache trying to set something up if you're in the scheduling business and not clash with some organization or some show that's happening. And I see that they have links to the individual organization upcoming events, which is very handy. What I'd really like to see is some kind of a merged in calendar where everything is all represented in one. And I know that this is a huge headache and nobody really knows how to do it. Maybe we should ask Sam Altman how to tackle this one with his Fastener encoded logo. Maybe he's a secret Fastener fetishist.
Well, I'm sure he'll be able to convince us that it's completely possible despite how hard it seems, okay? He convinced me they could make a website and tried to convince me how great at programming ChatGPT 5 was, but this will be a little simpler, I think.
Yeah, I sense we're going to have a show in the upcoming months that's going to just deal with all of these little tests that we've done. Not just us, but a lot of people who've been doing these things and realizing that it's really good for about 80% of what you need it to do, and the rest of it you're on your own, and therefore the whole thing is like, why bother? Anyway, back to the FIC site. There's one other thing that I am going to have to bring up with the appropriate members at the appropriate time, and that is there is a conspicuous absence of one key industry organization. And I can overlook the NFBBQA not being included, Bri, because let's face it, we're a little bit of a fringe group.
Not that fringe.
But for screw's sakes, where's the Naperville Fastener Association in the mix?
Right. I would have thought the traveling salesman would have been right on that.
Among others, yes. I mean, Kavoto, Cameron, you guys got a shout out for this.
Yeah.
All right. But otherwise, good job, guys. Keep moving things ahead. That's what we do here in the industry, right, Bri?
Yeah, we try to do that.
And right now we've brought ourselves to the end of another episode of Fully Threaded Radio. And so glad you clicked in. We'll be back soon with another episode, and I've got an unthreaded edition coming up with Marcel Goebel. Looking forward to that.
Okay.
Until then, for Brian Musker, this is Eric Dudas. Get out there, sell some screws. Keep your eyes peeled for NFBBQA-worthy pits out there. And we'll talk to you next time.
Right. See you next time, folks.
Fully Threaded Radio is a production of Fasteners Clearinghouse. Music provided by Audionautics.